Estate Golf Podcast. I am your host, Sean Melia, and today's topic is bang for your buck golf courses that are north and west of Boston, where I live. So we've got 10 courses we're going to talk about today. Before we jump into the podcast and those 10 courses, just want to make a quick plug. Please subscribe, like, review, rate this podcast wherever you are listening to it. You can also head over to YouTube and watch this podcast. I have started to add some video and photos of the golf courses. I did value picks south of the city last week and had some pictures and some video of those golf courses for you to kind of be able to see what they look like, maybe judge for yourself if it's a place you want to go check out and play. So that's the first thing. Please subscribe wherever you're listening, and head over to YouTube if you're interested in actually seeing what some of these golf courses look like. Some of them have taken photos with iPhone 10s, and some have been photographed with an actual camera. So a little wide-ranging quality, but for the most part, I try to pick out the ones that give you a sense of what the place is like and highlight some of the holes and quirks or qualities of the place. And then just the one other quick plug. I have a newsletter that comes out every Friday, and I kind of shove everything I've done from the week in there. So you would get a link to this podcast. You'd get the video embedded in the newsletter. I typically do a little bit of writing, whether it's something that I am thinking about with regards to professional golf, PGA Tour, live stuff, or just my golf and my life and what I've been thinking about while reading and watching golf during the week, or not watching and just still thinking about golf. So that kind of houses everything. You can get to my Instagram, baystate_golf from there. I am trying to play every course in Massachusetts, and that's a good place to find all that stuff. And so you can go to baystategolf.beehive.com. Beehive is spelled Beehiiv, and you can subscribe there. Every Friday morning, I send out a newsletter. I also include articles, things I've eaten, things I drank, things I watched, things I read that I liked during the week. Some of them have nothing to do with golf at all. So if you're looking for something like that every Friday morning, I would love if you subscribed and head over there. Okay, let's get to the 10 golf courses that I think are worth driving maybe a little bit to, especially if you live in Boston, or checking out over the course of the spring and summer this season. I did one thing with this list and with the list from last week with the south of Boston golf courses. I tried to just stick to 18-hole golf courses that are above 70 or higher par, so 70, 71, 72. And I will put together another list because there are some really good courses that are less than par 70. You get a couple really good courses that are in the par 60s, whether it's 61 to 60, par 69s. I know Plymouth Country Club people always bristle, especially my friend Jed, at kind of the brushing off par 69s, and I understand that too. But just as far as thinking about value, and so those kind of pars, the short, smaller courses that you can still hit driver, and maybe there's just a few more par 3s, or you get no par 5s. I'm going to do another list kind of looking at all of Massachusetts with those and pick out 10. And also 9-hole courses I did not include in this either. And I will figure out a way to share those as well, maybe with the smaller courses or a separate list. But that's kind of where my thinking was. The North, especially, as I was kind of looking through the list I've made and the list of courses I've played 118 courses since 2020. There's a lot of courses north of the city that are either very good par 9-holers or courses that are under par 70. So this was an interesting one to put together as far as the 10 north and west of Boston. I tried to keep it, within reason driving, except for one that I think is definitely worth going to checking out. And This was also a great exercise because it made me realize, as I looked at a map of the state and the golf courses that I have not played yet, that I have a huge blind spot in the kind of central to western Mass golf courses. There is a slew of them on the 91 belt that I have not played yet. So looking forward to putting some time aside and hoofing it out to western and central Mass a little bit more this summer, and maybe staying over a couple nights and trying to bang out a few out there. So if you're feeling like you've been left out of this out in western Mass, which I know a lot of times that's the case, as I've shared lists and shared golf courses I've enjoyed, that's part of it. If you're wondering what courses I have played, you can go to baystategolf.com. I have a review of every golf course I've played, and I have kind of tiered them all on one page so you can quickly scroll through and see what I've already played. Okay, now let's get to my 10 golf courses north and west of Boston. And we're going to start, let's be honest, we're going to start in Boston and talk about George Wright and Franklin Park. Don't want to lump these together. I think I do that a lot. But George Wright and Franklin Park both cost the same amount to play. On the weekdays, it is $55 to walk. If you're a resident, it is $46. And then on the weekends, it is $62 to walk, $55 for residents. Let's start with George Wright. A bear of a golf course, really challenging, blind tee shots everywhere. Greens are always in very good shape. Obviously, we are going to deal with some pace of play issues, which sometimes can knock places down for value. But the interest of the golf course, it is challenging. You're going to hit a ton of different shots. You're going to have some, long irons into par fours. You're going to play some really good par threes. I think the par threes as a set are outstanding. The 17th hole is one of my favorites, especially on the golf course and kind of in my quest. It's a standout, not only as a par three, but just as a hole in general. The setting coming at the end of the round. And so George Wright, an outstanding place. If you have never played it, I had never played it until I started this quest. I grew up in Acton, lived in Boston since 2009, played a bunch of golf that entire stretch of my life, and had never played George Wright, and was glad that I finally went out and played. And it's a place that I've played a bunch now. It's a place I've brought people who are visiting town to go play, because I think it's one of those types of places too. Kind of gives you a sense of what New England golf is like, and what Boston golf can be like. So George Wright, definitely go play it. Great value. You might play a really long round. I think there's a whole different issue around pace of play right now. So many people comment in my posts, or I talk about it with people in person. It feels like everywhere you try to play on a weekend is going to be slow, and it sucks. And it's not an excuse, but it's also one of those things I've tried to kind of pull out of creating this value list, because if you play it on a day when it might be quiet, or on a weekday, and you can get around in 3.5 or 4 hours, it is a delight. And George Wright is definitely one of those places. So I'm trying to kind of devalue the pace of play thing, because anywhere you play public golf wise these days, it's taking far too long to play golf. And that's kind of, it is what it is. If anyone has places that are super fast on the weekends, you can let me know. I will keep them a secret. That is something I would not share, but I'd be really interested to know what places actually have it done right. And maybe we can learn from them. Next up, Franklin Park in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I learned a hard way that it is not in Jamaica Plain. It is in Dorchester. It is the same price as George Wright, $55 and $46 on the weekdays, and $62 and $55 on the weekends. Carts are not included. These are all prices to walk the golf course. Franklin Park, just like George Wright, another Donald Ross, a completely different experience than George Wright. It is more open. There is more kind of vistas, and you can see a lot of the golf course. And it's never quite in as good shape as George Wright. The greens are always just a little shaggier, a little slower. the last few years, I've been lucky enough to play both courses in the same day. Played them in opposite orders where I've played George Wright, and it always feels like George Wright's greens are just a touch better. And I've done this different months of the summer as well. The first time I did it, I think we did it in August, and then we did it in September. And this most recent year, we did it in October, and it was beautiful and warm. Great. I mean, the fall was pretty solid this year, but everything at Franklin Park is you just wish it could be a little bit sharper. It's still kind of scruffy around the edges, but it is truly public golf. You're playing kind of among people who might be walking through the golf course. There's, Franklin Park, the actual park is right there. People are walking to and from work. People are having parties and gatherings that you can hear quite well from different parts of the golf course with loud music. And I kind of love that energy around the place. I know some people don't. Some people kind of downgrade it for that. But Franklin Park, if you have not played Franklin Park, that's another place you must go play. And it's another place that I had not played until I started this quest. And I go there a bunch. Also, good putting green, good chipping green. If you live close and you just want to go practice, George Wright and Franklin Park both have kind of nice spaces if you just want to go chip and putt for 30 minutes because you've got a little bit of time. Number 3 on this list, again, no particular order, didn't alphabetize them. I just made a list, and this is how we're going to go down. Merrimack Valley in Methuen, Massachusetts. So we're almost in New Hampshire here. It is $45 to play on the weekday, $55 on the weekends. These are the 2023 prices that were listed on their website. Merrimack Valley is an interesting golf course. It's a par 70, and as you go through it in your mind, it feels like it might actually be smaller than a par 70. You play it as I think it's a 34 on the front. I'm sorry, a 36 on the front and a 34 on the back as far as par. So you kind of the balance is a little bit off, and if you play it through your mind, you're playing a lot of par 3s, a lot of kind of short holes. But it's a par 70. This is one of those courses that loves to claim a little bit of Donald Ross legend, and I think it's been pretty beat up as far as really having any connection to Donald Ross being the golf architect. It's undergone renovations. It sits in a really low area where you tee off the first hole and the 10th hole, you play down into a valley, and you play around the valley, and then 18 and 8 bring you kind of back up into the level where the clubhouse is. The 9th hole is a little par 3 that plays across. So everything is really down in the valley, and you go a little bit farther down. There's some odd holes. This is where value comes into play. Nothing is perfect when you're looking for a place that has a value. Unless you're playing a place that's $150 that maybe should cost $300. But when we're looking at places that are in the $50 to maybe $80 to $90 range, and 90 even as far as what I'm trying to get as value, you start to push it a little bit. And Merrimack Valley has that feel. So it can be soggy. The greens are actually kind of interesting. You get some weird slopes. They're long. Some of them are long and skinny. You're playing very close to houses at some points, and that can be a turnoff for people. It sometimes and many times is for me. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid golf course for the price, for the area it's in the state. And it's worth going and playing, especially if you can get it on during a dry spell. If it's been raining a bunch, it might not be a top pick, even though they've tried to do a ton of work to make it better. When I played it in, maybe it was the summer of 21. It was soggy. We had a ton of rain, and it was fine. And I had played it before, But if it's dry, it's probably a lot more enjoyable and a lot more playable. But greens are good. You get a par 70, really good closing hole. You get a couple funny ones kind of through the middle of the front nine. I teed off the 10th, so trying to remember a little bit. But the front nine has a couple funny little holes, maybe 6, 5, and 6. But I liked 7 a lot. 8's a pretty good par 5. And I finished my round on a par 3, but that's the 9th hole, so can't judge it for that. So Merrimack Valley, go check it out. It's a good spot, kind of a good energy at the clubhouse as well. Little patio, and they were having some sort of luau party or had one the night before, so they had all these decorations and stuff. It's just kind of the place it is. So they like to have fun. They don't take themselves too seriously, from what I could tell. And that is Merrimack Valley. So go check that one out. Maybe when the weather gets a little dry and we hit a dry spell. Another place that has some bad reputation as far as drainage and some holes that in some cases you can't even play. And that's a little bit of a theme with this list. I don't know if it's just the courses I've played or the parts of the state that these are in or what, and we're going to talk about Sandy Burr. I posted about Sandy Burr this week on Instagram, just a few pictures. It's a place I grew up pretty close to and played a handful of times as a kid. Didn't play there all the time, but definitely Wayland Country Club and Sandy Burr were kind of minor go-tos. We'd play it a couple times every year. As a kid, it was kind of fun to start with back-to-back par 5s. There's a couple holes you can feel like you can drive. The 9th hole is kind of wild. Just a overall an interesting classic old golf course. Another one that has Ross connections. I see more Ross connections with this one definitely than Merrimack Valley. Just as far as like the greens and the routing and some of the calling cards, like a long par 3s, shorter par 5s. And Sandy Burr is good. There are some stretches of Sandy Burr that stink. Holes 6 and 7 are not good. And I'd say 7 is worse than 6 by a mile. And that for me is the stretch that I don't ever really enjoy. Even 8 is a little clunky as a whole, but 7 is almost unplayable if there's been any water because you are playing over marshland to this. It's not an island fairway, but it is close to it. And your ball hitting a long iron to just find that fairway can just disappear. It's a drivable hole if you want to try to slam it up by the green, but you're trying to carry water and anything else. And the 6th hole tee shot is fine. Maybe it's just something I don't like about it, but it always feels like people are hunting for their ball on those 2 holes, and that can back things up. And that's another thing that people kind of complained about when I posted about Sandy Burr. And my post was just, here's a golf course that's in Wayland. I really didn't offer any sort of opinion on it. Called it a Donald Ross, and people said it takes too long to play. They've walked off the golf course. They kind of slam tee times together, so they try to get just the most out of their day. So all of those things maybe would make you think, why the hell is this on this list? But that golf course is very good. As someone who lives in Boston, it is pretty easy to get to if the traffic doesn't stink. You hop on 90 and you're in Wayland in pretty short order to play a golf course that's pretty solid. Yes, it can take a long time, and that stinks. It always stinks. And the price, which I didn't mention, the price is $64 on the weekday as the peak price. They do some early bird stuff where on the weekday you could play for $54 super early in the morning from like 5 till 7 or 6:50. If you get out there and you want to play fast, you can spend $54. It's the same at the end of the day where from like 1 to 3 it's $54, and then after 3 it's $44 on the weekdays. And then they have the same on the weekend. The peak price on the weekend is $74 basically from the first tee time until 1 o'clock, I believe. And then from 1 to 3, you're paying $64. And then from 3 until until they close. It's $54. Carts are $25. So whatever you're thinking, you can add $25 if you want to go ride. And it's a good spot. I do like that super early bird if you live close and you want to go play it and be done, and not deal with the riffraff, or if you want to go later in the day and just know you can spend $44 on a Thursday evening or Wednesday evening to play, if they don't have men's league or women's league or any sort of leagues, which I know can sometimes be a hindrance to trying to play in the evenings at some of these places. But Sandy Burr, sure, it's wet. Sure, it can take forever. If you get it on a good day, or if you get it early in the morning, or if you're a weekday golfer, it is a spot that's definitely worth going and trying to play. Next up, a place I have done an entire podcast about. I would encourage you to go check that one out if you haven't listened to it or watched it. And that is Wachusett Country Club. This one and one other on this list, maybe two others on this list, kind of start to creep towards, are they value or not? And I added Wachusett and kept it on this list because, first off, I really like this. I really like this course. I think it is just it's entertaining. It's engaging. Another place that I know can take really long to play. Again, it's really hard to find anywhere that's not taking a long time to play these days. But during the week, you can play it for $55 and $50 after 3 o'clock. That feels to me like pretty good value. I think carts cost $25. In the weekend is where it might start to feel like, man, I don't know if this is so much value anymore as them maybe taking advantage of people wanting to play here. It's $95 to play on the weekends. They include the cart in that price, so you must either walk while paying the cart fee or just ride. So there's no walking fee until after 3 o'clock, when you can walk, and then you can pay $60. And then maybe you probably have to just pay extra for your cart, so you're spending $85 if you want to ride after 3 o'clock. But Wachusett has been kind of talked about as being well maintained. I think there's a lot of really good holes out there. It's charming. The back nine is a blast to play. There's some good hard holes. It hosts the Wachusett County Am every year, along with Kettle Brook. It's owned by the same family. And, that's a tournament that brings out a lot of very good players. Matt Parziali has won it. Frank Vanna Jr. has won it. Owen Quinn, who is kind of battling on the grinding as a professional right now, won it recently as well. So there are some really good players who have won it. Hall of Famers have won this golf tournament. So it attracts a really good group and a really good field. And I think that says something about the golf course as well. If you want more about Wachusett, I did a whole week, a Wachusett week on Instagram. And I also kind of capped it off with a podcast where I talked about it for 25 minutes. So not going to spend much more time than that on Wachusett in West Boylston. Again, $55 to play on the weekdays. For me, that is the value, not so much the weekends, which is $95 with a cart on your charge, whether you're going to walk or not. Next up, we're going to go to Georgetown, Massachusetts. And we're going to play Black Swan. This is a golf course I have played a lot. I have played once in my quest, but as someone who used to work on the North Shore, has friends up there, and I would play there a fair amount in the spring, summer, after work. Just go and kind of meet people who already live up in the Georgetown, Rowley, Boxford area. I know there's some other options up there too, and I have not played them in the quest. Some of those Beverly Golf and Tennis people tend to really like. I've played there, but I have not played it for the quest, so I am not putting it on this list. If you want to give it an honorable mention, I'm happy to, but I don't know what the price is. I didn't look it up, but as I'm kind of thinking about places I played when I lived up there, that was another one. But Black Swan, another one that is $55 to play on the weekday, to walk, $69 on the weekend. Another pretty valuable, price. It's not always in outstanding shape. It's a place where the more you play it, you kind of figure out your way around it. There's some awkward holes. There's some frankly bad holes, but it kind of stands up over time as a course that's pretty good. And for that price, I think it's another one that you can get stuck in some really slow play. It's not in superb shape, but for $55 to go and walk a golf course during the weekday in the summer, that's pretty good. And to pay less than $70 to play on the weekend, that's pretty good. It's got a solid clubhouse. It's got a driving range so you can hit balls before you play. In my memory, it is also frequently a grass range, which you don't always find at public golf courses. They'll have it out, but usually you're hitting off the mats. And so Black Swan, Georgetown, Mass. Go check out Black Swan this summer. It's a good value if you're in that $50 to $70 range and you want to go play golf. Next up is Butterbrook, maybe the second on the ones like Wachusett. They have a very interesting pricing here, which just bear with me as I maybe throw a bunch of numbers at you. But overall, Butterbrook, which is in Westford, Mass, kind of on the Carlisle, Westford, Acton line. The golf course is maybe 25 years old now. I've played here a bunch. This was the place when I was teaching and I wasn't driving to the North Shore to play with friends and teachers and coworkers who lived up there because that's where the school was. I would often go play Butterbrook. It's the area where I grew up. It's not a place I grew up playing because I was, in high school by the time it opened and off to college. So I would be happy to drive out there and play during the weekdays when I was on summer vacation and had some time to play and had some time to drive out and maybe visit my folks. So Butterbrook has a little bit of a special place just because it is a very good golf course. It wouldn't be on this list if it wasn't. And on the weekdays, you can play it for $55 if you are happy to walk. And that is Monday to Thursday. So pretty good price for a solid golf course that's going to challenge you really all the way around. There's some really good stretches of holes. The back nine at sunset might be like one of the nicer settings that you're going to find in Massachusetts golf, especially Massachusetts public golf. I think where the land opens up after the 12th, you get to the 12th hole, the 12th tee, and you're playing kind of across more open land for 4, 5, 6 holes. And the sun setting, it is a really nice spot. It's lovely. For $55, definitely worth it. They also have a range. This past year, the third hole, which is a very short, maybe the worst hole on the course, just a really short par 3, a nothing hole with a tree in the way. If you push your shot a little bit, a long, skinny green, anything left careen down into a hazard, and it just wasn't a good hole. They've done a ton of work to it. They closed it last year, and they turned what was a little practice green at the back of the driving range near the 10th tee. They turned that into basically a replacement hole that after you played 1 through 9, that kind of replaced the third hole. It was about the same length. So you'd hit your shot to the practice green, which was pinned with 1 pin. And then you'd play the back 9. So from the last time I was there, which was October, it looked like that hole, the third, was going to be ready to roll again in the spring. And that makes it even more valuable. That makes it even a better spot to go play golf this year, because I think that third hole is going to be way better from what I saw. They made a bunch of room behind the tee to lengthen it a little bit. Looked like they softened some of the areas to the left and made the green a little bit bigger. So kind of a nice addition to it as well, which is worth going and checking out. But $55 on the weekday is pretty good. And then you get some convoluted pricing here. You can play on Friday, but you have to pay $100 before 1 p.m. and you must ride. You have to ride, so you're paying $100 for a Friday round before 1 p.m. and it's $100. and you have to ride. Or you could, they've let me walk before, but you're paying the $100 to walk, this is where the value, you start to lose the value a little bit. After 1 and until 250, you are able to pay $60 and then you're allowed to walk. So after 1 o'clock, carts are not required. And now as I'm saying that, I'm realizing I think you have to ride before 1 on those days because they're just trying to get people through. So you can pay $60 and play after 1 and walk for 60, and then after 3 they have a kind of a late twilight, and that's $50. That's Fridays. And then on the weekend, it's $110 to play before 1 and ride. And then it's $60 from 1 to 250, and it's $50 from 3 to close again. So once you get to 1 o'clock, the price drops a lot, and you're allowed to walk, and you start to get that value back. So if I was going to play Butterbrook, I would not tell anyone it is value to play Butterbrook from open until 1 o'clock on a Friday or the weekend. Definitely not value. But Monday to Thursday and afternoons on Friday to Sunday, it's pretty good value, and it's a really good course. I think one of the gripes people have about it is that the greens are never quite as good as maybe they'd want them to be. They're just a touch shaggy, and that can be kind of a bummer because some of the greens have some cool contours on them, and even the green surrounds are really good. And you got a couple drivable par 4s that are like legit really good drivable par 4s. One early in the round in the second hole, one later in the round. Kind of a fun match play course. You get to the 15th and you feel like you're playing a Florida par 4 where you're hitting ball into kind of a target area, and then you're hitting your second shot over some water into a green that's just tucked in this back little spot. 16's a reachable par 5, 17's a wild kind of almost a cape par 4 where you can carry as much as you want. People love that hole. Some people hate that hole. 18 is not a great closer, so you might want to finish your match off by 17 to make it a truly good match play course. But I really like Butterbrook. Monday to Thursday, awesome value. Fridays and the weekends after 1 o'clock, great value. If you're looking for value and you want to play fast, probably not the place to go play in the mornings on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Next up, another brook. We're going to go to Kettle Brook in Paxton. Again, I mentioned Wachusett, owned by the same people, the Maroney family. Another place that kind of has some different pricing. It's $50 on the weekdays. Another really good value. This is what I found on the website. And as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like trying to figure out if this is off-season pricing or what, but they have $50 posted right now on their website. $45 after 3 o'clock. Kettlebrook is a little bit like Butterbrook in that it's got some beefy holes. You're going to play some big par 4s. You're going to play some funky par 5s. You're going to play 12 holes that feel like they have an identity, and then you're going to go play the last bunch of holes that feel like you're kind of playing a different golf course. Acushnet River Valley has the same kind of vibe. And I don't mind it. That's not a complaint. It's just definitely you're kind of moving through different pieces of land, which I think a lot of good golf courses do. So I like it. I played this and finished in the dark in November. Played it in 45-degree weather. It wasn't miserable, but it was definitely not the peak Kettlebrook experience, and it is on the short list of places I want to go back and play properly in the spring, summer, or fall when the weather is a little bit better and I'm not playing 17 and 18 in the dark with headlamps and trying to find our golf balls and coyotes in the distance howling. I mean, it was kind of a cool way to finish the round, but I would love to go back and see it and play it properly when the weather's good. It is back to prices on the weekends. It is $85. You are charged for a golf cart no matter what before 1 p.m. I would assume they might let you walk. I have not had this experience with them. Butterbrook, I've played there a bunch and kind of know how they roll. But after 3 o'clock, it's $55 on the weekend. So another pretty good drop in price, and you are not charged for a cart after that 1 p.m. Window. So you could, again, the value kind of increases if you wait until the afternoon to play some of these places on the weekend. But Kettlebrook, go play it. I am going to go back and see it. I'm hoping this year. Really liked it, really enjoyed it. Juniper Hills in Northborough. We're going to talk about the Riverside course. This is the one I played. This is kind of like the lower end of the value chart, right? So I would put Kettlebrook, Butterbrook, maybe on a different level. George Wright, probably just a touch above Franklin Park with Kettlebrook and Butterbrook. They're a little bit nicer. They're a little bit more interesting. Juniper Hills for $51 on the weekdays and for $56 on the weekends, and a $25 card if you want to ride, is a pretty good deal. And it's not too far from Boston. It's not too far from a lot of spots in Massachusetts, even from Connecticut and Rhode Island, if that's where you live. And I played the Riverside course. And again, much like Sandy Burr and Merrimack Valley, you get some wet spots. When I played there in the fall, we had gotten a ton of rain, and the 9th fairway was closed. So we had to tee off from a spot that basically turned it into a really long par 3, drivable par 4, because the water was just any ball landing in the fairway was going to plug and disappear. It wasn't even like there was standing water. It was just, as you walked over it, it was so soft. There are some, again, we're talking value. We're talking a $51 round of golf on the weekdays and $56 on the weekend. So the price on the weekend isn't that much higher, which maybe is a good thing, but it might tell you a little bit about kind of how they view their prices and how they view themselves, and how they are trying to give people a little bit of value to go to play on the weekends, because it's not a bad price. The land the golf course is on is interesting. You're playing kind of up and down. It's not one of these flat, kind of desolate golf courses. There are you've got some tree lined holes. You've got some bunkerless holes that are really great. The stretch of, I'd say like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is good. The front 9, I think I liked more than the back 9. Back 9, it gets a little bit redundant with some of the shots you're hitting. I liked a lot of the green sites, just visually the way they kind of sat in some little plateaus all around the property. So Riverside, Juniper Hills, Northborough, go check it out. It's not going to blow you away, but if you're looking for kind of a cheaper 18-hole walk, the price is pretty right. And finally, we're going to go out to one of my favorite places in the state. We're going to go way out. We're miles away from Boston now. We're closer to Albany. We're going to go to Waubeeka Golf Links. It is $59 on the weekdays. It is $79 on the weekends. It is in Williamstown, Massachusetts. It is just down the street from one of my favorite golf courses in the state. One of my favorite golf courses I've played in my life, in Taconic, which is not on this list because, let's be honest, it's a pricey public golf course, semi-private golf course. I've played it for $60 because I was lucky enough to find a member. And if you play with a member, the price goes down. If you play with someone who is affiliated with Williams College, because the course is owned by Williams College, the price also goes down, maybe to $100. But if you are playing just as a Joe Schmo off the street who calls 3 days in advance to Taconic, 4 days in advance, or just walks up one day and the tee sheet is quiet, you're paying, I think you're getting to $200 now. I didn't look this up, but I think I paid $175 when I played it in 2020 for the first time. Completely worth it. We're talking about different value at that point, because it is an awesome golf course. It's as good as a lot of private golf courses in the state. So that's Taconic. If you can get on Taconic when you're out playing Waubeeka, do it. If you can get out with a member, definitely do it, because it's cheaper than playing Waubeeka at $60. So Waubeeka Golf Links is $59 on the weekdays, $79 on the weekends. It is an interesting golf course. The people are super nice, awesome range, awesome facilities. You feel like you're kind of out in the Berkshires. The clubhouse is kind of a wood cabin kind of feel, and the golf course is solid. You're playing through some really hilly land. You're playing to some big greens. You're playing to some small greens. You're playing way uphill. You're playing holes that go way downhill. You're playing to fairways with creeks running across them. You're playing through narrow spots. You're playing through wide areas. Like, there's a really nice rhythm to the golf course. If you go in the fall, like, the scenery is really good. I've played here once during the quest because we went out to Williamstown a couple times in 2020 during the pandemic. It was a little bit of a getaway for us. It was far enough away to feel like we were leaving Boston, but it was still inside of state lines, so we didn't feel like we were breaking any really strict rules as far as, stay home and all that stuff. And we just fell in love with the area, so we went back a couple times. I played Waubeeka, and I went to Nike Golf Camp like years ago, and Waubeeka was the golf course we got to play in the afternoons after we would practice. And it's just a really kind of, it'll surprise you. There'll be some spots where you're like, this is dumb. There's some kind of awkward shots, narrow landing areas, some funny green sites, and you'll also just be kind of charmed by the place and the area and some of the shots you do get to hit. Some blind tee shots, some approach. There's an approach like straight up a hill to a par 4. The green is way more wild than it should be for being completely blind. You can barely see the flagstick. I think that's a 13th. The 11th is another hole I really liked. The 16th par 3 is like a reverse Redan, incredible hole that I wish I had better photos of. So Waubeeka, $59, $79. If you're in Williamstown, definitely give that one a try. Don't get stuck on Taconic. If you can play Taconic, you should absolutely play Taconic. It is great value if you can play with a member. I could talk about Taconic forever, and I won't do that to all of you right now. So let's go quickly through these 10 courses. Once again, get your pen out, get your paper out, whatever you want to do. But my values, north and west of Boston, that are par 70, 71, 72. We're going to George Wright in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. We are going to Franklin Park in Dorchester, Massachusetts. We're going to Merrimack Valley up north in Methuen, Massachusetts. We are heading out to Wayland, Mass to play Sandy Burr. We're going to play Wachusett in West Boylston, Mass. We're going to play Black Swan in Georgetown, Mass. We're going to play Butterbrook in Westford, Mass. Kettlebrook in Paxton, Mass. Juniper Hills in Northborough. That's the Riverside course. And Waubeeka Golf Links in Williamstown, a course that is a little bit farther afield than the other ones. I am looking forward to playing golf courses that are in between places like Paxton and Northborough, which are starting to get towards that Worcester line, and Williamstown, right? There's a huge swath of the state that I need to start checking some places off and seeing. And I've gotten invites and I've gotten mentions from people who say I should go play these public courses. And I'm looking forward to getting back to Worcester, just the area as a Holy Cross grad. There's a bunch of places that I have played in the past that I have not been back to, like Heritage and Blackstone National, which was our home course when I played there in college. So there's a bunch of places out in that way that I'm looking forward to seeing again, and I'm looking forward to seeing for the first time. But until that day comes, this is my list of 10 courses. And if you've got ones that you love, stick them in the comments, send them my way. You can find me and you can send me an email at sean@baystategolf.com if you want to send me some thoughts about this podcast. If you're on YouTube, you can put them in the comments. Please rate, review, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And we will see you next Friday with some more bang for your buck choices. And we will be talking about smaller par, lower par golf courses all over Massachusetts. Until then, hit them straight.